There are a ton of theories about cryptozoology and all of the potential things that word typically includes. In our last episode, we talked with my brother Micah Hanks about a lot of the evidence that he had found in relation to Bigfoot over the years. Some people might think, well, that's a big waste of time. Bigfoot isn't real. But chances are if you're listening to this podcast, then maybe you have at least a little bit of an interest in that subject. Now, typically when you think about Bigfoot or Sasquatch, I would say that the overwhelming majority of people think big hairy man-like ape creature walking around in the woods. And that very well may be the case. But there are a lot of people out there that have experienced cryptids in what some can only describe as a bit of a metaphysical sense. Some people have reported cryptids just vanishing into thin air. Some people have claimed to see Sasquatch board UFOs with Chupacabra running along at its feet. And to those people I say, lucky you bastards. I want to see that shit. But in tonight's episode, Austin and I got the opportunity to talk to somebody who is not only an incredible artist, but someone that's done a ton of personal research on archaeology, strange skeletons, potential ancient humanoids of an unknown origin, and their own encounters with maybe a more metaphysical version of what we would typically think of as Sasquatch. Now, no matter how you look at the subject, if people are reporting that Sasquatch and other cryptids could be exerting abilities that are actually oddly close to what some report as typical ghost phenomenon, then I think it's worth our while to entertain the idea that maybe there is something more to this than just creatures out in the woods. And maybe the key to being able to witness these things is actually based in our own perception. Well, we are going to talk about that and much more on this episode. The Appalachian Mountains are some of the oldest in the world, and we just happen to live in them. One thing we can tell you, there are ghosts in the mountains. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. I am your host as always, Caleb Hanks, and my co-host Austin Burgess will be with you shortly because today's episode is our first remote ever, as in we packed up all our stuff and went out to go do an interview, which ended up being a very awesome experience. Now, not too long after we started the podcast, we were contacted by today's guest, an artist that lives out towards Brevard, North Carolina, who has a business called Tiresquatch, who's run by an incredible artist, Marcia K, who was gracious enough to let Austin and I go check out her studio, see all of the incredible artwork that she's put together, and have a really, really interesting conversation with her about, the existence of Sasquatch and the metaphysical aspect of that potential phenomenon, among so many other things that she's interested in the realm of the paranormal. And the conversation ends up going into some really, really fun territories and maybe some places that our minds don't typically go to when we're thinking about the Sasquatch phenomenon. So just a quick disclaimer, I took our portable rig over there, which I hadn't quite completely dialed in as well as the one that we have here in the home studio. It still sounds pretty good, but there's a little bit of echo and stuff like that going on, but I'll definitely try to have that rig dialed in a little bit more next time we do a remote. But that said, hopefully it won't bother you too much because the conversation is really, really interesting. And Marcia's artwork is really, really cool. Most of it is made out of recycled tires, hence the name Tiresquatch. So without me further rambling on, here is our remote interview with Marcia K, owner and creator of Tiresquatch. Well, welcome to another horrific episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. Not horrific because of like anything scary. It's just because me and Austin just aren't that talented. But that being said, we are doing our first live remote ever, and we could not be more excited. I'm so excited. I wore my Sasquatch shirt.
You're in uniform.
I'm in uniform down here. But we have been blessed to be invited into the home and studio of the elusive Tiresquatch artist herself, Marcia Moore. Did I get your name right?
You did.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. I just want to make sure that I'm enunciating the right syllables. But yeah, so we're going to let Marcia tell you all about what she does and her background and all that stuff. But we just were able to take a tour of her studio here. And I'm looking around the room at your incredible artwork. I have to say, they don't make artists like yourself every day. This is seriously impressive work, and I'm not blowing smoke. Like the first thing I see when I walk in the room is this intricately crafted beaver out of these recycled tire parts, and I don't know what it is. I just think beavers are like the cutest thing in the world. So I'm like, that's the first thing I see. I walk in, I'm in a safe space. So anyway. How are you doing? And we hope you're excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited because this is my home, my studio, and
Yeah.
I love the aspect of you guys coming down here and being inside of this because I think it just generates a real cool vibe anyway.
It definitely does.
I love having people come in. It's a living, working studio. It's called Tiresquatch. I'm Marcia K. Moore. I've been an artist, kind of / researcher / reclaim bike tire sculptress the tire stuff has been around for 2 years. And prior to that, I was 12 years reclaiming lost history that I wanted to know about that didn't seem to make the history books.
Yeah.
And that started when I lived in Florida. So that is a little intro of me.
Yeah. I used to play a lot of music down there in Florida, so I might have breezed through your old stomping grounds because we were everywhere from Jacksonville to Miami.
Yeah, cool. You probably did. I was on the I was down in Stewart.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So obviously this has been a journey for you, getting to the point to where you're at now. I'm assuming you've been a lifelong artist. So, where does this journey begin for you? Like as an artist and then kind of getting into the realm of eventually, getting into Sasquatch and adjacent kind of universes.
Yeah, the story starts preconditioning,
Right.
when you're about 5 or 6 years old, before you're headed into school.
Yeah.
And you're asking all the deep dive questions, with your dad, like, who am I?
Yeah, sure.
Where do we come from? And where do we go? I mean, I asked all those questions.
Yeah.
And I felt very, very connected as a kid. I just felt very rooted to the planet. So, and always wanted to sketch. I mean, some of my earliest sketches were a big Folgers can of water. My mother filled up a empty Folgers can with water, and
Right.
I'd paint the sidewalks. So like when I'm 2 or 3 years old, that's what I was doing. So it's just always been a part of me. I've always honed in on who am I. I've always I'm like it's my birthright. I want to know, where do I come from? And that's just always been a part of my trail. Every aspect of me has been that. So I have been in the art world for a very, very long time. Yes, I have. But I have a lot of different chapters. But all those chapters and all those tools have been, have brought me to this moment, actually.
Right.
So it's like all those skills, all those tools, just all those chapters of life. It brings you to that next version of yourself. So it's really cool.
I think that's awesome that you set out asking, who am I? Because I don't know if a lot of people start out thinking that way. They're just
at that age,
I'm
too.
here, I'm a blob, I scream a lot, and I'm hungry. And it's like...
I ask people that now. I'm
Right.
like, do you know that you live on a planet? Mm-hmm. When people get so caught up in this world, in the everyday, I'm like, do you understand that you live on a planet? Mm-hmm. I mean,
do you realize we're literally on a rock
planet,
Yeah.
and there's a huge cosmos out there,
and we don't really know why it's floating.
Yeah,
we're still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, so maybe your Walmart experience is really not that important, or maybe it is. I don't know, but
Yeah.
those are the questions I asked early on. I really wanted to know, what this is all about from the get-go. And that kind of, I asked the question to my dad. I was like, well, who are we? And he said, well, you're American. And I'm like, okay, but I just kind of felt like it needed to go further than that.
Sure.
So it was like, okay, so if I'm American, then I'm going to really root myself into North America. And who came before me? Well, our indigenous communities. So that's kind of how I directed myself.
Sure.
I was like, I want to know about all the different cultural areas and these indigenous people because it makes sense to me. The foundation and the spirit of these communities just made sense to me.
Right.
In the way that they observe the planet and how to live on the planet. So that's what I did.
Right.
And I followed that trail for a very long time. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming like pretty early on into this journey, you start artistically interpreting these things. Like, so what was it, drawing that started you?
I was sketching from a very young age. And as we start to get more and more into this conversation, I remember sketching characters that had elongated craniums, elongated heads. And I always thought when I was sketching them that it just felt normal.
And that's just something that came to you naturally.
It just came to me. It just would come out. It would flow through onto the paper. And I'm like, it just felt really normal to have this look for a head shape. And that's where it started, with the sketching like that. And then I just really honed in on anthropology, archaeology.
Sure.
I wanted to know more about the cultural areas here in this country. And, I probably didn't start really deep diving into our lost history until about my maybe mid-40s. So that was probably, 15 years ago.
Right.
And then I really honed in on it.
Was there a certain topic that kind of piqued your curiosity on the lost history side?
Well, I was living in Florida.
Uh-huh.
And I was working on my home, kind of like this. Made it a living, working studio. But it was taking on the essence of a story about ancient Florida, like pre-Spanish. So I was honing in on the mound complexes down there, the Shell Middens, the Calusa Indians, the Shell people, and I was creating this fanciful story. And it was kind of like when The Lord of the Rings, I think, had just come out, and all those. And I was just really excited about all that, I guess.
Who wouldn't?
So I became my own little entertainment studio. I learned how to 3D sculpt on the computer.
Yeah.
I learned every aspect of digital. I learned how to, all the traditional skills were there. I was painting. I was everything imaginable I was doing. I was just doing every aspect, every discipline of the art realm, actually. And I was working on this story. And as the story progressed, I, again, started getting these characters that had elongated heads. You guys just saw the one that was out there. And so I created that as a 3D sculpture. And all of a sudden then on, I believe it was Facebook, I honed in on Brian Forster, who really takes a deep dive into the elongated heads down in Peru. That was his main, megalithic structures, and then the elongated heads was his thing.
Is that with like the Paracas skulls?
Yeah, all that. Yep.
Okay.
And so I just showed him one of these characters. It was a character. It wasn't even it was just a skull shape that I had created myself. Mm-hmm. And he just was like, oh my gosh, no one has ever put a face to one of these skulls. So even if it was just an interpretation, he showed it to his audience and it just went crazy. So I kind of felt like at that point in time, I wanted to know more too. So I kind of put the story of the Calusa Indians and the Florida lost history, I put that kind of on back burner, and then just took some real interesting side trails. And the first one was, reconstructing the Paracas skulls. Yeah. Anything that came my way that way. And then also kind of honing in on, here in North America, our mound complexes here in the Mississippi and Ohio Valley area. So I was reconstructing the Adena. I had actually, from alternative researchers, received skull data and skeleton data that was actually from the Smithsonian, if you can believe it.
Wow, right. That's quite the record there.
And just went about reconstructing that skull and skeleton, and I have, I've got a reclaimed Adena male and female that it's on my website,
Wow.
so anybody can go to the website and see all that information.
Right, yeah. So this is the time where I just wish that my brother was here to make me seem as though I knew more
Yeah.
about it. So I am unfamiliar with the term Adena. Is that like a potential kind of off-branch race of people, or is this a particular entity?
That was, all of your archaeologists, who find these remains always use their name.
Right.
To
Okay, like Lucy.
Yeah.
That
stuff
kind of
like
thing.
that.
Okay,
so
cool.
the Adena, I'm not going to, I don't know 100% because I've kind of forgotten that stuff, specifics like that. But
Yeah, no worries.
I know that the Adena, it's has to do with the rather large, giant-sized people that were an aspect and a part of our mound builder complexes.
Right.
And those were pretty much all over the Southeast. And as you're heading into the Midwest and a little bit further as well, we have data of very large people, 7 foot, 8 foot people.
Yeah.
And the ones that I reconstructed, the Adena, the male and the female, were of the 8 foot stature.
Wow. And based off
And
data
based
specifically.
off, I have all
from
that
the
information
Smithsonian.
on my website that is based off actual skull data, photographs, skeleton data. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
That
There
is-
you have it.
That is legitimately incredible because, I mean, gosh, I had to be probably 12 or 13 when I started hearing stories about they keep finding these 7 or 8 foot tall giant skeletons, and then the Smithsonian shows up and everybody just packs it in a car and then you never see it again.
Yeah, it was very visible initially. I mean, the early 1900s, all of that information was very visible.
Right.
It was documented, stories. Townships would have stories. You can find it all over the internet. I mean,
Right.
you just research, Google it, and it's there. It's just one day it wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, okay, wait a minute. So where did all this information go?
Yeah.
So, and my work is, I'm not a licensed forensic artist, but I know enough about anatomy, and I'm the interest is there for me. So you can YouTube anything you want, right?
Yeah.
So I learned literally how to forensically reconstruct just through watching, the mainstream forensic people do it with the muscle markers and
Sure.
everything that you need, the anthropology report, all of it. I'm very much in tune with that. That would have been a discipline that I would have headed towards. But so it came kind of easy for me.
Right.
And the interest was there. But, all my work is an interpretation. And I leave that up to the audience, the viewers, to go, look, now it's time for you to take the deep dive in the research. Research it. If it's of interest to you, then look it up. Check it out. That's basically all the intent of my work over the last 12 years was to keep your mind open to the possibilities.
Sure.
And just, do your own research. If it doesn't resonate with you, if something I've created doesn't resonate, or if it does, or anybody else for that matter, just, start researching for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of where I ended up over the last 12 years. I always say 12 years, but I think now it's probably been about 13, 14 years.
Right.
So it's been a long time. So
Cool.
yeah.
That's such a cool thing to strive for, to almost want to be the spark that encourages people to want to study this or dive deeper into it.
Yeah, I just, it really is important to me that people understand that there's more to this realm than just what we think we know, what we've been led to believe as far as in our history books, globally. So I'm like, if it's out there and nobody is touching this,
Yeah.
why are you not touching
Yeah, why
this?
is it such a
Why are you not
forbidden
giving
subject?
me? Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Why are you not giving me the information? Why do I see these elongated heads, these skulls, but there's no reconstructions? There's no facial application to it. You won't see that very often. And, mine might be very conservative. When I started researching these elongated heads and working with Brian Forster, the percentage of natural, so-called natural anomalies was probably around 4%. Okay. But the rest of the world is emulating that head shape. So who and what are they emulating? That was kind of my thought. I was like, well, I've got to get to the bottom of this.
So you're saying that 4% of the skulls, the elongated skulls found, were not caused by head binding or a similar procedure.
Absolutely. The anomaly around the head is so extreme that you can't. I spent a few years in Crown and Bridge, so I worked dental. And I know enough about skull anatomy, and you can't determine if it is male or female. It is that anomalous.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there are just certain aspects that I actually found research-wise that, you have the little the hole that's in the back of the neck that the spine connects to.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have that. It sits actually, that connection on a human, on the anomalous elongated skull, it sits about an inch back.
Huh.
So the foramen magnum, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I follow.
So it's like that section, that hole between the neck and the spine sits actually back even an inch further on these anomalous skulls. So that means the whole structure of that being, they didn't walk like this.
Right.
They didn't walk like us, and they probably didn't talk like us.
Right.
I mean, that changes everything. So it's there were so many anomalies that they're known for the large eye sockets, very large eye sockets.
Yeah.
They're known for only having 2 sutures opposed to 3 on the head, on the skull. You have 3 sutures as a human, and they only had 2. The teeth, I mean, the list is forever. I mean, there's just so much that is strange.
These are some of the ways that you would use, or they would use, to distinguish the head binders from the true anomalies.
Oh,
in
yeah,
the skulls.
absolutely.
Yeah,
you knew immediately one that was a head binder opposed to one that seemed very, very natural.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So wild.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, as you're kind of getting into this and learning about these elongated skulls, so you before the podcast, you had mentioned that your probably first encounter, and I say encounter, or just like finding something related to Sasquatch, was you went and saw Legend of Boggy Creek, right?
Yeah. Well, that kind of was the first. Let me go back even a little bit further, just real quickly.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, and I'm sure just saying this, your audience is going to, a lot of people are going to shake their heads. When I was young, I had dreams of tall black silhouettes, and they were very lucid dreams. And these tall black images. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Iowa, so the woods was right behind my house, and so these tall silhouette images in the dreams would want to tickle me. You know, like as a kid, and there's nothing worse than being tickled as a kid. But these silhouettes, these big silhouettes. I mean, they were big shadows, is how I guess I can describe it. They would always prompt me to do something through the tickling. Let's say they would want to tickle me. Okay, they would come up and tickle my waist or something like that. That would irritate me enough in the dream that it would prompt me to go out into the street in the dream, on my street. It was all very much just the same as, the house, the street, everything was, I don't even know if you can call it dream time. It was so real.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was like I went out into the street after they tickled me because I was so annoyed with that, but it prompted me to run down the street and take my first flight, in the dream time.
Yeah, sure.
Where you're flying as a kid. Remember that
Oh, yeah.
moment where you remember how to fly?
That kind of bums me out because I've been wanting to fly in dreams for the longest time.
And you haven't?
And the only time that I've ever been able to do it is when there's some sort of technology helping me. Like, I've had dreams where I've been in, like, Tony Stark's Iron Man suit, and I've been able to fly. But there's only been one other dream that I was ever able to fly. And in that dream, I was Vision, who's played by Paul Bettany in the Marvel movies. I'm like, what is it with Marvel and me flying? But I've had these dreams where I'm in lucid states, where it seems it's as real as possible. And I'm jumping.
Yes.
And I can jump like 11 feet in the air. And I think it is a subconscious thing of me feeling like I haven't met my full potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, enough about me.
No.
Please,
no,
go on.
That's great because, that kind of happened more as a young person than, as a kid. I mean, I was, I don't know if you can call it dream time. It was so real.
Right.
So it was like I went out into the street after they tickled me because I was so annoyed with that, but it prompted me to run down the street and take my first flight, in the dream time. as an older person, because
Right.
as a young person, you haven't been conditioned.
You're free.
You're free
to think. You don't have all of these just like societal pressures and crazy things in your head. I know.
All of that just comes to you because it just seems very normal to you.
Yeah.
That's when kids have their little invisible friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like things just they're there because there's it's just when you're young, it's like that. So when you go through the conditioning of, the schooling and life as it is in the game that we play, a lot of that is lost. So that happened initially prior to seeing that movie. I wanted to say that.
Right,
so I would have those experiences. I knew when I went out in the woods that there was something there. I didn't, and I could only describe it as a shadow.
Right.
Because that's the only essence that I really received.
Yeah. And
Right?
we've dug into so much of that, what we call kind of almost shadow entities, and different cultures have different interpretations, whether they're the jinn or other just different figures. But, the common thing that we always hear is appearing in that peripheral vision or peripheral part of your vision or in the dream state too.
Yeah, so like that veiled
exactly.
visual. I get it in this building every once in a while where my head will turn 2 or 3 times. I'm like, what was that?
Oh, sure.
So, it's there.
Well, there are so many theories around what Sasquatch could be, and I feel like in the last few years that people started really looking into the UFO phenomenon and kind of pointing that more towards maybe this is more interdimensional in nature rather than a nuts and bolts kind of thing. And right around that time is when I started really hearing a lot of theories about, maybe Sasquatch actually is something that kind of walks between worlds, and that's why he is the hide and seek champion, and it's very hard to pin him down, or he or she or it or whatever it is. But I have talked to plenty of people that have essentially said, I had a Sasquatch literally walk into my house, and it didn't take the door, it came through the wall.
Yeah.
I have heard a lot of people talk about that sort of stuff. And as a kid, my introduction to it always was there is a large bipedal hominin, I think is the term Micah told me I should use instead of hominid, correct. But hominin that is, walking around, and it's just highly intelligent, more than likely more like a human than a creature like an ape, and therefore highly reclusive and just a very rare species that still exists. And I'm not completely opposed to the idea of this because last week we wanted to do a little bit of a primer before we came out, and we wanted to get my brother's perspective on the whole Sasquatch thing. And by the end of it, we were talking about some stories that he had heard from some park rangers out in the thoroughfare in Yellowstone, where they said they saw these tall, hairy creatures that would stalk one particular story. One is stalking a deer. I mean, they're out in the middle of nowhere. He's literally out on horseback, and he sees this thing coming down along the edge of the woods, and he says it's obviously watching this deer, and it comes out, and when the deer takes off, he saw it like run, and he said it was funny because its arms stayed extended long while it was running. And when you hear a story like that from a park ranger that's working out in the depths of a vast, vast wilderness like the thoroughfare in Yellowstone, you really have to think, it's just like, man, I mean, when you have a credible source like that, it really does make you wonder, is this thing real? And some people don't question if it's real or not. To a lot of people, it's a question if it's real or not. But, as far as you're concerned, I mean, would you like to touch on where your kind of where your mind goes when it comes to the concept of a Sasquatch in general, and what you think it might be?
Well, first off, I'd like to say that, when we talk about disappearing or, that kind of thing, or walking in between veils, so to speak, I mean, cultures have done that.
Sure.
You look at the Anasazi.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look at the cliff dwellers out in the Southwest. Where did they go?
Right.
The whole shebanger. I mean, just left the cliffs and there's nobody there. You still have the old pottery with seeds in it. You've got the remains of a culture that just literally got up and walked away.
And every time they're like, the explanation is irrigation routes. It's all irrigation routes. It's like, I don't buy it.
Yeah. I have to hone in on Nikola Tesla.
Oh, man.
Okay, that's
And
it.
You and me both.
Yeah, I just have to hone in on that, and I just have to say frequency, density, vibration. Once you understand that concept, then it's a no-brainer. I mean,
Well,
it really is a
yeah.
no-brainer. One person explained it to me one time, the aspect of density or frequency or vibration, whatever you want to say, in having a ceiling fan. Okay, you have the ceiling fan and you've got it on the first number. You've got it on level 1. And as it's spinning around, you can see the paddles as it's going around.
Right.
Okay, well, that's like you are residing in kind of a 3D density because you are seeing just the paddles.
Yep.
Okay, let's crank that baby up all the way. Let's go to level 5 on the fan. That's the highest speed, let's say.
Right.
When that fan gets going around to the point where you can't even see the paddles and you can see right through to the ceiling, well, what density are you in? You just shifted gears.
Right.
Now you're going to see things that you never saw before. So for me, it's about, when I worked on these elongated heads, I know this is going to be kind of a strange kind of analogy, so to speak. But when I worked on them, it was like, as an artist, that energy flows through you. You're a conduit for information.
Tuning into something.
You're totally tuned in. You just are, period, the end. You're channeling. So as you're working on something, let's say I'm working on a face made out of clay, maybe that skull is actually giving me information.
Right.
Well, one of the first pieces of information I got was bring back the balance. And I'm like, it's not some lady in the distance saying that. It's my mind saying that. But it's also just coming through me just out of the blue. Bring back the balance. Well, I pay attention to that stuff. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? For me, it meant, we need to hone in on being an aspect of this planet and then also hone in on, the technology or the spirit aspect of us, bringing back the balance of being human on the planet and knowing that that spirit is also a huge aspect of us as well. So that creates a balance.
Right.
If we look at it through technology, that creates a balance. Our kids nowadays, it's mainly technology,
Yeah,
right?
they can't
so
not
it's like,
see it through technology.
Exactly. So it's like they don't know the life skills that a lot of us knew as young kids or were taught. And I would never have them on Survivor Island with me because they wouldn't know what to do.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
it's like they don't know, other than ordering from Amazon, really what to do. I mean, they're totally, that's out of balance.
Yeah.
Right there.
I was just going to say, kind of on that thought of just being like completely out of balance with the organism that is the planet. And it's so funny hearing you talk about that because, hey, you be quiet. Because, I think about that a lot because we have this kind of perception sometimes in the modern day that we are not part of this thing. But that we're experiencing reality in a kind of material sense. But when you think about take away the trees, you don't have oxygen. Take away the oxygen, well, where are we then?
Right.
We are just as much of a part of this whole thing as anything else on this planet. And I think a lot about just the intuition that people used to have to be able to survive back in the day and the almost kind of psychic bond that people used to have because of that. I think that people were, frankly, before the Industrial Revolution and times like that, I think that people were just a lot more open and receptive to whatever you want to call that, the psychic receptors or whatever. I think that people were just tuned in on a frequency that they just 100% are not even capable of achieving at this point because we always have our face with a screen in it.
Right.
And when you think about going to an outdoor event or something like that, and literally not being able to find a friend or something like that, and just relying on GPS and stuff like that. It's like, how did people find each other back in the day?
Right.
How did people navigate and return to each other, after going on these epic quests in the Viking era? It's just wild to me to think about how. And sorry to keep rambling about this, but I do think it's kind of interesting because I do see there being a bit of, for better or for worse, a bit of a technological evolution that is starting to take place. And if that's a bad thing, whatever, it's happening, And I kind of tend to look at if it's happening on Earth, then maybe it is natural. All the technological stuff that we find unnatural is maybe just like us kind of teething. We're weaning into something new.
I understand why that concept would be terrifying to most people, and why most people are like, no, put me in the woods with the Sasquatch. That's where I want to live.
Well, I think that, as humans, we have lost our power.
Yeah.
I mean, we had all that.
Right.
And we could do all that. And we still can do all of it. The other concept that I wanted to tell you about the elongated heads was another thing that came through was humans did not need to emulate this head shape.
Sure.
Humans were emulating that head shape because they thought they could expand consciously.
Right.
Let's expand our heads.
Expanding the mind, expanding the conscious.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and tap in and tune and tap in. Well, I was told specifically while working on a sculpture, humans did not need to emulate the head shape. They do not expand consciously through the head. They expand through the heart. Humans are here to expand through the heart. And I say that because in the Bigfoot world, when you're out in the woods and your intention out there is to have a good time. And immediately you're rooted to being, when you're on the planet and in the woods, that is normal. That is the way a human is supposed to be, right? We're just at our happiest moment when we're doing stuff like that. You don't have a care in the world. And you are expanding immediately, just like Tesla, density, frequency, vibration. You are vibrating and expanding through your heart. As you do that, you are starting to enter other densities that are in that realm of expansion that you're not used to, because you're living in a very 3D solid heavy density. And as you expand your heart, you expand it to another maybe lighter density. Our Sasquatch people do not live in, I believe, this is my perception, they do not reside in a 3D density.
Right.
They can come into this density, they can shift into this density, but they live in a different density, in a different vibration, a different frequency. So it's like we're not tuned into the radio station that they are. Once we tune our hearts, because our heart is huge it's not all about, goofy little love stuff. Our heart is a major organ that hooks up with our brain. So if we expand through the heart, then we start to perceive through the brain. That alignment is going to take us into the next density, so to speak. We're missing a lot when we live in this 3D realm. We're missing so much.
Oh, yeah.
When we could go out into, is this making sense?
I totally follow.
When we could go out into the forest and just by becoming happier, we're shifting gears.
Right.
And we're tuning into that radio station. And when we tune into that radio station, we are going to, that veil is going to become very thin. And then if we ask the question, hey, I don't know you guys, but I sure would like to meet you, or I'd like to know more about you. Is there any way that we could kind of learn about each other? I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I go out there and ask the question. They're not going to just show themselves. If there's something out there, you got to talk to them.
Right.
So I go out there and just talk to them like they're my friends. And I'm just like, look, I don't know you. Maybe you don't know me, but maybe we can slowly start building a trust with each other.
Sure.
And see what happens. And more than not, things will start happening in a way that is a recipe for you.
Right.
Because in essence, the Bigfoot, I believe, are really mirroring who you are. The essence of you. So if you're going to go out into the forest to slay the dragon, I'm going to hunt, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to find this, we're going to research this to death.
Right.
Well, that is the information that you're going to get right back at you. You're going to, if you go out to hunt the dragon is going to slay you, period, the end.
Right.
They're going to come back in the same realm. If you go out there with your intention of loving, I'm going to have a great walk, I'm going to have a great hike, I would really like to get to know you guys more. If you want to show yourselves, or if you want to show something, some aspect of you, then that is what you will receive, a loving gesture back.
Right.
So you really have to watch your intention. Words are very powerful. Your intent is powerful around this so-called, whoever you want to call them, the forest people, Sasquatch, Bigfoot.
I really like that approach, because that's why I've always And not to just shit on these people, but I'm going to a little bit. It's like calling a show Ghost Hunters.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because these were people at one point. So is it people hunters? It's kind of weird.
And are they ghosts?
Well, we don't know.
Maybe they're just, their energy is hanging out in a different density.
Well,
that's all.
That's what got me thinking about what you're talking about with that regard, because, here at Ghosts in the Mountains, we don't necessarily call ourselves any sort of authority on this thing. We're just as curious as anybody else about this, and we just try to take the information that we can find that we have and be like, okay, is there any sort of correlation with this sort of thing? And it's really interesting with you talking about there being like different frequencies and densities and that sort of thing, because it's like with the ghost phenomenon, we don't have any information to even prove that, as far as I'm concerned, that any of the ghost phenomena is actually occurring. However, I am not the most scientifically minded person, although I wish I were, but when you kind of look at some of these things, there do tend to be, kind of anomalous interactions with things like electromagnetic fields and electromagnetic field detectors. At least that is, one of the more common ways that people tend to try to sense ghosts. And I think it's really interesting to kind of take that same approach to something like Sasquatch research, because I was going to say, when you're talking about being out in the forest and being just open and trying to have a conversation, most of the time when people, let's just say for the sake of conversation that electronic voice phenomenon, EVP, is real. Some of the most compelling ones I've ever heard are when people go into a room and they just start having a conversation. They just start trying to make a connection with these people.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, that's when they start talking. I mean, you go anywhere on the planet, a bar, a grocery store, wherever, you just start asking somebody about something and you strike up a conversation. We're social creatures. That's a very natural thing. So why wouldn't you think that if these were the spirits of human beings, and or that Sasquatch was, whatever dimension they're in, if they were able to perceive whatever communication we're putting out there, I think it's a great way to look at it. It's like, dude, we're just trying to have a conversation. We're just trying to get to know each other. So I think that's such a cool approach. And there's a lot of people that kind of, Dr. Stephen Greer and UFOlogy, he kind of takes that same approach as, hey, we're just inviting you down. We're trying to talk. We're sending you good vibes. And, at least in the concept of that, I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not give it a shot?
Yeah. And I think it's kind of I won't say like uniting theory, but it's almost like what like Jacques Vallée talks about specifically in like Passport to Magonia, where the phenomenon is going to wear different masks to present itself to you in whatever your preconceived notion is familiar with. Like what you go in and expecting to see is what that phenomenon is going to come back and appear as to you, because it's what you're comfortable with, what your belief system has kind of prepared you for to expect.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an interesting way to look at it as well.
Absolutely. And, this doesn't have to happen in the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was living in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, I was in my room, in my bed, and I felt something sitting on my bed. I mean, people have had that before, but this was definitely a forest person that was sitting on my bed. And when I turned over, I saw the shadow aspect of this forest person, and that shadow had its hand up. And I told myself, well, Marcia, put your hand up, put your hand. I mean, it took everything.
Yeah.
It took everything for me to put my hand up. And when I put my hand up, and we kind of touched, there was a sharing of this blue-green energy. And then as fast as that happened, I turned over and then just went back to sleep with this huge smile on my face. It does not have to happen in the woods. But more than not, you're going to expand through the heart in the woods, because you're in a place that helps you remember who you are as a human being. You are a part of this planet.
Right.
This is natural to be out in this wood. It makes you happy. I learned later on that a woman that was a channeler and was in the Pacific Northwest that had some information on this blue-green energy. She said a lot of the Native Americans had this story that the Sasquatch would come up and share a blue-green energy with them when they trusted them. So you see, that was very important for me. I could have just completely deleted that, and I don't even need to tell you right now, but I need to tell you because these things happen. These things really happen, and we can't poo-poo all this stuff. I've got people that come to this studio that look at my 8-foot Tiresquatch that I have outside made out of bike tires.
Right.
And I'll have like my lawn guy come up to me and go, "Do you believe in this stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And then all of a sudden, he's like looking both ways and he's like, "Well, when I was young, so there's the stories. The stories just start happening. It's like people they see something like this and then all of a sudden they're like, I can share my experience. There's a lot of experiences out there. Oh my gosh, if we could all get in one room with each other, there's so many people that just don't feel like they can bring that file forward.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you shared the experience of the blue-green energy because I feel like there's probably so many people that might have a similar experience but just write it off as something of their subconscious or a dream or something. But when they hear people sharing stories and how impactful that moment was to you, it kind of brings a new light to that for their own experiences.
Right. It was so strong. And I might have, with time, maybe let that go. But when I heard the connection of what the Pacific Northwest Indians did with that blue-green energy, it was like that was known for that. I was just like, oh my gosh. A lot of up in the Pacific Northwest, when you go into like a ceremonial structure, where the people dance and sing and drum and stuff, their drumming up there is like a big hollow cedar log, and they have big mallets, big sticks, and that's what they do. They hit the big cedar.
Sure.
And one native man came up to me one time and he said, "Where do you think we got the idea of hitting like that on a big cedar?"
Nice.
With just a big stick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, so it's like there's so much information out there. We just all need to start sharing it. It's very important to share these stories because, like I said, I really believe that the veil, they always talk about the veil getting thinner. It is getting thinner.
Sure.
We're starting to understand that we're shifting. We're in a time period now that as humans, we're actually shifting. We're shifting from a 3D realm into a 4D realm into maybe even a 5D realm. We are consciously expanding and shifting. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know about it.
Yeah.
So it's like when we're doing that, then those veils of our ancestors, so to speak, are right next door. They're not very far away.
Yeah.
So why not talk to them? And they can help us on so many levels. So
maybe I am a little too optimistic when it comes to technology stuff, but I've read a lot of work from people like Ray Kurzweil and people that are like, they look at this idea of the singularity, this moment where humans kind of merge with technology to the point to where the singularity is essentially like the event horizon. The mathematical possibility of what could be possible with AI and then human integration with technology could become so vast that we literally would not know what that horizon looked like at that point. And maybe it's just me being optimistic about it, but I do like to think that at a certain point, I think we're in a bit of a toxic point with technology right now. But I do kind of hope that one day technology not only kind of brings us back around to what we were able to sense when, in a world before that. But I kind of hope that technology really does open up our ability to perceive, and we're able to find like ways to see into these different frequencies and experience these different frequencies. And that might be kind of a blanket statement. A lot of people are just like, no, we're just going to blow ourselves up. But I kind of stand by this outlook that humans are crafty. And we've been crafty for a long time. We've lived through some crazy stuff. Even within the last decade, we've lived through some really crazy stuff. And we came out on the other end of it. And I just think in a hopeful sense, I think if we try to look at technology in a way and we try to drive it to be used for hopeful things and actual betterment, I would hope that it would allow us to, just have an understanding, be at a point where we can think about it like we used to call them ghosts, things like that. We used to think that Mothman was a monster. It was, Larry. He's from Philadelphia. Stuff like that.
No, I agree.
But who knows if we'll get to that point. But, I think the one thing that is kind of beautiful about the time that we're living in right now is that a lot of these things, they feel mysterious, but not scary to me. I think it's mysterious, and that to me is magical. It's cool. It shows you that there's still something to find out. If we knew everything, I'd be bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's the purpose of even being a human on the planet.
I agree.
You're supposed to have experiences to remember who you are.
And
in doing that, you are starting to remember a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah.
Well, who am I?
Yeah.
Why am I even here on this planet? If there's a million other things going on out there in the cosmos, how did I end up here?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to the human story. There is.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Yeah.
we're not on the top of the list, so to speak.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There's so much that we have just forgotten on so many levels.
Yeah.
So we're just now starting to kind of, now I'm starting to understand this a little better.
Right.
For sure.
And you just kind of really have to hone in on your perception. And if it resonates with somebody else, great. If it doesn't, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
We're all kind of we're calibrated on different levels.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
some of it works for you, some of it doesn't. Do your own research.
Yeah.
Figure out who you are.
And not to just sit here and be like pro technology, but one thing that I do see that is really great about technology is being able to communicate, actually speak to one another, get to the point where it's like, on your phone, you have these translation apps, and somebody was telling me just the other day that they saw somebody on a date and they didn't speak their same language, but they were translating on the phones. And I was like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
No, that's cool. That's
That
cool.
is. The connection.
Exactly.
The connections. I'm looking at the wall there. It's written on the wall.
And to that point, I don't know the meaning of life, but I think I do know where to start. And it was like what you said, experience.
Yeah.
If there's one thing we know we are here to do, it is to experience as much as we can and find the things that we find interest in and have connections and love one another at. I'm looking over here at the artwork that you have on the walls here. So when you start doing these pieces, are you just kind of getting into a flow state? And because there's a couple of different things that you said that have sparked my mind. Because me being a songwriter and a really bad artist, especially in the basking in this, when I have a song come to mind, I always call it the download from the mothership. And I've heard other people talk about that many a time. But when I get a song, I have always, since I was a kid, heard that thing done immediately.
Yep, you're channeling.
Yeah,
You're
that's
getting that.
Yes,
you're getting that information from the ethers. It's coming through you, and it's for you.
Right.
And if you pass it up, because a lot of people do pass things up because they're whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to go to somebody else.
Oh yeah.
So we get downloads all the time. This whole interior is a download.
Yeah, no doubt.
Everything I do is a download.
Yeah.
So it's
the blue-green energy story is almost a download.
It is. At that point, it's not really advisable to even have a thought.
Sure.
You just let it all be empty. Use your tool and create. Even writers do that. Songwriters do that. Haven't you written something before and you're like, oh my God, who wrote this?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Exactly.
For sure.
So that happens with my work all the time. I'm just as amazed as everybody else when I see the end result. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Free writing or free sketching, I
exactly.
guess.
Yeah. So we all have the capacity to do that. So that's another important thing for your audience. It's like everybody can do that. We're all very powerful. We really are. So
no doubt.
Cool. Real quick, I did want to jump back to the blue-green energy story and use the word forest people. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's kind of what the cultures that participated in the head binding said they were looking to imitate, correct? Some of the forest people?
A lot of our, I think, and I don't want to speak for indigenous people.
Of course.
But I like to just, I've been around the cultures long enough where I can just kind of say through my own voice, I guess, that would be probably what they would say, so to speak. But it depends on the cultural area.
Yeah, of course.
Like in the Pacific Northwest, you're surrounded by huge forests.
Yeah, yeah,
these are
yeah.
giant forests too. Think about that. So it's like, so you have giant-sized something else out
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
usually. So yeah, I call them forest people because that's where I have mainly gone to have experiences
Understood.
into the forest.
And kind of like drawing the connection between some of the elongated heads and the Sasquatch itself. What do you feel would be the best way to kind of describe
Well, that has
connection?
different trails.
Yeah.
To be honest with you,
Yeah.
there's a percentage. Like I said, there's 4% that are very anomalous.
Yeah.
And who were they emulating? Well, people that were headbinders. We have to look at the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just solely, humans just didn't go boom, we're here.
Yeah.
There's been a lot going on here, and you have to take the deep dive with that too, because sooner or later you have to understand your history. It goes way back. Technology, that's nothing new. That's
Right.
been around for a long, long time. We're just bringing it forward again.
Sure.
We don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
I can use it, but I don't know the concept, the recipe behind it, so
yeah.
to speak.
We're like babies with machine guns. It's great.
Exactly. But, tell me that over in Egypt, many thousands of years ago, when I am sculpting with 3D sculpture software and I am creating and I get these mirrored images, whatever I'm creating on one side will mirror on the other side when I'm using my software.
Yeah.
Real easy, really wonderful. When you look at the big, huge the huge sculptures over in Egypt, and it's a mirror presence. What you see on one side is mirrored completely on the other side.
Yeah.
How do you think they did that?
Yeah.
How do you think they got that so perfect? These are huge sculptures, and there were a lot of them.
Yeah.
They didn't chisel those. They had that technology.
Right.
And when I've asked a lot of those alternative researchers that have honed in on just, Egypt and the presence of
Yeah.
that, they will say absolutely. That technology was there, whether it was through software or whether it was through laser printing or printing of some sort, it was there.
Sure.
So it's always been around. But in regards to your question with the long heads.
Yeah.
So I wanted to follow more of the indigenous trail here in North America, and that's one of the reasons why I moved from Florida all the way to the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest. I moved
Okay.
up to Washington.
Yeah.
And I was kind of at the tippy top in Bellingham, Washington, so I could have access to Canada and Vancouver Island. A lot of those cultural areas, a lot of the native peoples emulated that head shape.
Okay.
You can see that if you go to Vancouver, their anthropology museum, you can pull out their files. I am telling you, the photos of the villages with mainly women that had elongated heads. I mean, there were like 50 women that would have these. It was just
Wow.
like normal.
Yeah.
And so I was very curious about what or who they were emulating. And more than not, when you're around a cultural area that their ceremonies revolve around the wild man and the wild woman, their carvings, when they do their big masks and their story poles, always have, and especially on the story poles, will always have a wild man or, a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Or the masks will be of the wild man or the wild woman. Their family crests. I mean, every aspect.
It all ties back.
Ties back to the wild man and the wild woman, the forest people.
Yeah.
And the relationship. And I'm like, well, what is the relationship? Well, a lot of that is lost information. But some of the elders that I have talked to, and we've kind of came to a conclusion that they were emulating the head shape of the forest people.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to know how to, they thought if they emulated that head shape, because a lot of the Sasquatch have that crested head.
Yeah, the sagittal crest.
They have that sagittal crest. So they wanted to emulate that head shape, which made it more like a sugar loaf is what they called it.
Yeah.
So they did that because they wanted to be able to hop in and out of different densities like the forest people did. They thought if they expanded through the head
The conscious
and thought if they looked
thought.
like them
Yeah.
somewhat, they could start hopping around.
Wow. Yeah. I've drawn the lines now. That's fascinating, honestly.
Yeah, and honestly, also, the DNA is there. I mean, you have families that have the DNA of our forest people. It's clear as day up there.
Yeah.
So that is there. There's that crossover. So they're just friends. They're family. They are connected that strongly. They were not, we've made this into such, like you said earlier, we made this into such a mystery. Well, I don't think it was much of a mystery. These were their neighbors, their friends, their relatives.
Sure.
And they just wanted to be able to, as human beings, they wanted to emulate what they could do.
Yeah. Since moving to Western North Carolina, have you had the opportunity to connect with any Cherokee elders or anyone from the Eastern Band of Cherokee out in this area?
I really haven't, and I wish, I will have been here 2 years in September, and the first year was kind of launching kind of a whole new art form for myself.
Yeah,
and then we went
sure.
through that hurricane.
Yeah,
so
for real.
You've had quite the couple years experience.
Yeah, the universe is
But
like, you want to
will.
cleanse? Here you go.
Yeah, I will at some point get over there and slowly. I don't like to push rivers where I
sure.
go.
Yeah, definitely.
I never do. With any community that I live in, it doesn't matter who you are. I will slowly make an entrance.
Yeah.
I will say that I was adopted into the Yankton Sioux tribe. A woman that initiated NAGPRA from the state of Iowa adopted me into her Teopspie, which is family.
Yeah.
And so that usually more than not kind of opens the door or lends itself to a handshake right away.
Yeah,
because
understood.
of what she did for tribal graves and protection and repatriation, so to
Very
speak.
nice.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, we cannot tell you how many stories we cover of just desecrations of burial sites, and it is just a real travesty. And then building lakes on top of them, and it's just like, oh my God, can we not just like respect these people for the love of God? But anyway,
Yeah.
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 for the love of God or whatever it is you believe.
Well,
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunately the nature of man. We
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
built upon.
Unfortunately so.
It's been global. So.
We must conquest and build something literally everywhere.
Yeah, for
well,
sure.
Since you've opened here, have people shared any interesting stories about experiences, particularly around Western North Carolina, that you found credible or interesting?
Well, that's slowly starting to happen,
Yeah.
but nothing that right off the top of my head that I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
what's on the top of my head here?
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah, it's been more about kind of building the trust.
Yeah,
And it's been more about, but honestly, yes, people have come in and told me their stories. 2 or 3 people have told me specific stories about encounters.
Yeah.
And other people, I think it's more about building the trust of, should I share, should I not share? So let's just take this one step at a time, so to speak.
Definitely.
But I do believe that, the whole aspect of this kind of living, working studio has kind of lent itself to, more than not, I think the future will present that, even if it's a, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say conference. Let's say there's a gathering of some sort.
Yeah.
And people do share. Imagine if we all got together and just kind of, started to share our stories, and I think that would be really cool, honestly.
Yeah, I do too.
You guys might want to think about that. Maybe we should start something
Right?
like that.
Well,
It might be starting right now.
that's very true. It's weird. It's almost weird that you say that, because I've heard some other people that are somewhat in that world making little noises about that
Really?
as well.
Yeah.
We used to have them back in the early 2000s, back when I was with my old ghost hunting alma mater. We had one up at the Grove Park Inn, I think in 2004. And Bigfoot researcher Lauren Coleman, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's pretty well known for what he does, and he spoke up there that year, and it was just kind of a cool thing. We had a lot of different, just kind of diverse group of people. Some people talking about UFOs, the whole 9 yards. I think Jim Mars might have been there before he passed.
I think I heard Micah tell that story, actually.
Yeah, but yeah.
I think the whole concept of having like a gathering where people can share their experiences.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not researchers.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
they can just
exactly.
feel comfortable enough to share their experience. That would be an aspect of an indigenous thing to do, like a talking stick, where give people time. You pass around the talking stick, and people are allotted so much time to share their story, and no one can interrupt them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I think with researchers, and it gets to be kind of a heavy density once in a while. It's
Yeah,
like you can get a lot
understood.
of
Competing
animosity.
theories.
Animosity
Yeah.
and competing and all that kind of stuff.
the
Whose
ego.
research beats out whose research and
The
all
ego
that.
is ever present.
Yeah. So it would be cool if you could just kind of have people come in and go, I'd like to share my experience.
Yeah, I think that's the way to
And
do
see
it.
if someone else raises their hand and goes, oh my gosh, I had the same experience.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I saw this probably earlier this week. More of a local Bigfoot sighting experience was posted on the Bigfoot Research Organization. It happened up north of Sapphire going towards Highland.
Oh, really?
So I thought that'd be
Really?
interesting to bring it to you guys today if no one's seen it yet.
Oh my gosh, cool.
The story was my fiance and I were driving from Sapphire, North Carolina to Highlands when the car in front of us stopped suddenly on what appeared to be a large black creature. It appeared very suddenly and jumped over the guardrail with ease. It had very long arms and dark hair, very tall. We couldn't make out a face. It obviously startled the car in front of us, which slammed on its brakes. This car was a blue Hyundai Genesis. We were just gobsmacked. It happened between 4 and 5 p.m. on Wednesday, July 30th, 2025.
Oh my gosh.
Just the other week.
Wow,
So it
that's
goes on
cool.
to say, although I'm a skeptic, I truly never witnessed anything like this before. Very strange. And it looks like even Matt Moneymaker went and followed up with the witness and found them very credible, said their story all checked out, and seems like they might have experienced something anomalous up just in our backyard.
Oh, absolutely. Our backyard has a lot going on. These are one of the oldest mountain ranges.
Yeah, that's something we constantly talk about here on the
And
show.
it is. So you can imagine the different timelines, so to speak. So we have a lot going on here.
I gotta say that's really weird for me because I used to play music in Highlands, North Carolina, every single Wednesday night for like over a decade.
And this happened on a Wednesday.
So, they were going to the Ugly Dog pub. Dude, yeah, I'm just so familiar with that drive. I've made that drive more times than I ever wanted to.
So you could almost picture where the guardrail's curving around.
Well, you know what? Just, I'm not bitter, but I'm just saying, like, I had all this opportunity. If I had just stuck with the bluegrass game, maybe I would have seen him. That's really cool. Thanks for bringing that up, man.
no problem.
Just stay in your bedroom and ask for the blue-green light.
That's
all
true.
you have to do.
go.
Yeah, I'm going to try that method. I like being home a lot more than driving all over the place.
Yeah, I thought of nothing else. It was a cool little cosmic ping to
No, I think that's
the
great.
topic we were doing.
Absolutely.
And just the location and that being not even 30 minutes from us here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is super wild.
You know that happens a lot.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, we are coming up on an hour where we usually try to keep it there. But if the conversation naturally keeps going, then rock and roll. But I wanted to make sure that we gave you an opportunity to tell people like how to find you, how to find you on the interwebs, or how to physically find your work and all the things that you've done. Because we really, especially after being here and seeing this, like I want as many people as you want to come see this.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure. Yeah, everybody's welcome. Well, I'm down here in Pisgah Forest. It's all on my website, which is Tiresquatch.com. That's my new work.
Yeah.
Which has to do with reclaimed lost, I reclaimed lost history, and now I'm reclaiming bike tires and making sculptural pieces, very large sculptural pieces, and they're worth you should take a look, I guess.
Oh, you definitely should take a look. I mean, it's truly, truly impressive work. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I can't even believe the craftsmanship that goes into this because, I mean, you definitely have the gift.
Yeah, thank you. You can't miss the studio because there's an 8-foot big guy standing right out in front,
Yeah, no
made out
doubt.
of bike tires, and people will say, "Well, I've never seen a Bigfoot," and I'm like, "Yeah, you have. He's 8 foot tall. He's made out of tires."
Yep.
And that right there for me is getting the audience to, that subconsciously gets in your head. Mm-hmm. Then you start asking questions: is this folklore? Is it real? Is it? And then it'll find its way from that moment on. It'll find its way, and another opportunity will present itself. Like maybe a little, I don't know, out in the Pacific Northwest, it'd be a Bigfoot coffee, or everything was Bigfoot out there. So I'm like, you can't tell me you've never heard or seen Bigfoot because it's in your face out here completely.
Yeah, for
and it's kind of, it'll happen all over. This is going to be a topic that is. I don't know. It seems to be making the rounds, don't you think? So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's quite mainstream nowadays.
It's quite mainstream. So what I'm doing basically with Tiresquatch is dusting off Smokey the Bear and bringing in an icon that is just like, when we're out in these living mountains and forests, let's remember, let's be mindful, number one, and remember who you are. Get out there and explore the aspect of being a human. Who am I?
Yeah.
Ask some questions. Ask the trees. Ask the Bigfoot. Ask the rocks. You will get answers. Everything is conscious. So you will get answers. You don't need another human being to tell you.
Right. I really have just enjoyed hearing your perspective on this whole thing. And it's kind of showed me that it's like, there's a lot of people out there that are on a very linear path. They're like, we're going to get to Bigfoot. We must go into the woods. We must find, we must hunt. And I love hearing, your perspective on your experience with just your interactions with all kinds of different potential consciousness and kind of just being like, hey, I just want to know more about what it is you do, who you are, who I am, this whole thing. And I think that that's such a just like very healthy outlook to have going into really so many different realms of the unexplained or the unknown. There's a lot to a lot of people that is unknown, like leaving the country can be going into the unknown, and you can be afraid of those sorts of things. And I think when it comes to potential ghost activity or Sasquatch, people can have a lot of fear about it. But I like that you don't go into that with any sort of like fear. It doesn't even occur to you seemingly. You're just like, this is an exploration. This is getting to know something about myself and other entities and other people. I just think that is such a wonderful outlook and an approach that I don't hear a lot of people going into it that way. I think that everybody likes to think of like Bigfoot. Yes, he's made of meat and hair and he walks around in the woods. And I like entertaining the idea of looking into maybe that's not the way it is, because I think even for myself, I grew up in the woods. I've seen all kinds of bears and animals all over the place my whole entire life. And so it's kind of easy to go, well, yeah, it's just meat with bones and skin and it's running around out there. But then again, I'm the guy that's the host of the damn Ghost in the Mountains podcast. And like, I'm talking about the potential for, spirits to be lingering. Why not attribute this same potential to the other aspects of things that we look at and we think these are, potential physical manifestations? So many people have reported seeing ghosts and they're like, it just looks like a guy. It just looks like a person, like you and me standing here, and then they disappear.
Right.
Well, Sasquatch seems to be pretty good at doing that same thing.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not like I don't go out in the woods and set an intention.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I do. I don't want to be scared.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't want anything to jump out behind a tree.
Yeah.
Who wants that? So I will go out there and I go, look, if we ever do have an interaction, if I can build that trust enough in this area now that I'm here down in the Pacific Forest, let's start with little stick glyphs. That's how it starts for me.
Sure.
And it has started. And let's start with some structures. Okay, well, that has started. And then let's start with, okay, maybe we can get some shadow type feeling about this. And maybe my heart expands to the point where, when you go out there sometimes and your heart expands and you just want to cry and you don't even know why. You're just like, oh my God, I just feel this sense of wanting to shed some tears. That you're expanding your frequency, and that makes it that much stronger to have an interaction. So I want it nice and easy, and I'll tell them I want it nice and easy.
Yeah.
I don't want anything that's going to scare the crap out of me, because I want to go back out into the forest.
Yeah.
I don't want to have, an experience that is scary. Why have that? So more than not, I'll just do that. I don't want them to stink.
Yeah.
People are like, oh man, you're going to know when they're around because they stink so bad. I'm like, well, do they have to? If it's my experience and my perception and my, if it's for me, then why don't they smell like, I like them to smell like sweetgrass.
Yeah.
So when I was in the Pacific North, because I like that smell, sage, sweetgrass. So when I was in the Pacific Northwest, where there is no sweetgrass in those forests, I'll get whiffs of sweetgrass. So it's like I'm getting what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
Sure.
So ask for what you want. What do you prefer?
Yeah.
Do you prefer a skunk in your face, or do you prefer a nice little rose petal? I mean, it's totally up to you. But they'll give you what you want.
Well, the other side of that, too, you talk about if you're going out with the intention that you're hunting something, what do you think something's going to do? When a skunk wants you out of there, what does it do?
Absolutely.
Maybe that is a pheromone that is giving out, that is literally telling you, I want you out of here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not going to say that isn't going to happen. A lot of that happens.
Sure.
And, but you can't interpret a lot of these guys will interpret structures, like X's, big X's and stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen these big X's. They are like, for me, and this is my perception, it's like a portal. It's like an entrance or an exit. It's not stay out of here.
Sure.
And that is usually that 3D heavy, that heaviness that we have as humans is we want to put a label on something all the time. And I'm like, you know what? Honestly, I think it's more of you either see it or you don't.
Sure.
I told you guys about how I would sketch out in the forest and I'd sit there sketching on a cedar log, and maybe, 10 feet away from me, 20 people would walk by on a hiking path and only one would see me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if I'm elusive, what else is out there that is very elusive, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to see me if we are kind of resonating the same, so to speak.
Right.
If we're tuned in with each other, we're going to see each other. If we're not, you're not going to see me. This big tire sculpture, a lot of people don't even know it's here, and it's in their face. I mean, some people will go, "Oh my gosh, I see that every day," and other people will go, "I've never seen that."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, even a tire sculpture is elusive because you're not ready to see it yet.
Yeah.
So when you're ready, you'll see it.
But that might also speak a little bit to just like, how does maybe the Sasquatch is right there in plain sight hiding, and what is it about that form where it's just, do they just blend into the trees? Is that why it's just so easy? If they are the forest people, maybe they're just like, I'm gonna be the tree.
But
you might just see the tree.
They have been known as shapeshifters.
Yeah,
they
for
shapeshift,
sure.
so they can blend easily with. They can come through a tree. You know, it's like they can do that. They can be that owl that has a deep voice, and you're like, wow, I've never heard that pitch with an owl before. I mean, that happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
And so there's a lot in the woods that you just really have no idea.
Yeah,
It's
the mystery
amazing.
continues.
The mystery
For
continues.
sure.
So anyway, I can be found through Tiresquatch.com, and then also through social media, Marcia K. Moore. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I have all my lost history artwork is through Marcia K. Moore. You can look up that website, and go for it. Check it out.
If you guys don't check out her stuff, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. I have enjoyed talking to you so very much.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you.
Likewise, it's been fun.
Oh, gosh.
Can we do it again?
Oh, 100%
Yes, we'd
gonna
love to.
happen.
Let's do it.
100% gonna
Let's bring
happen.
Micah next time.
Yeah, dude, we got to get the bro in here for the round table because it's just going to be too fun. Thank you so much for inviting us into your space, for allowing us to see this stuff. And I've just had such a wonderful time hearing, in my opinion, just a very refreshing perspective and outlook looking at this entire thing, because I feel like in a lot of ways, ghost hunting or Sasquatch hunting or hunting the Loch Ness Monster or whatever it is, maybe we need to stop hunting.
Yeah, maybe we should just ask.
Yeah, maybe we should start just talking and discovering together.
Exactly.
Ghost talking doesn't make a good of a TV show.
Ghosts talking in the
if there
mountains.
are neighbors, and if there are friends, and if there are relatives, maybe, then, there's a real good friend of mine, Arlo Williams, and she has seen them physically, been around them since she was 6 years old.
Yeah.
And she discovered that, if there are neighbors, sometimes our neighbors want to wave at us and say hi, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. Sometimes they want to hide.
Yeah.
I'm that neighbor that wants to hide most of the time.
So that's how we have to treat this.
Yeah.
You might get some information one day and you might not the next day. Just look at it as you're not going to don't explore it to death. Go out in the woods and remember who you are, number one. by just enjoying the aspect of being in the forest or the mountains and taking a wonderful hike or canoeing or whatever you're doing. And then if you just kind of bring that in a little bit and just kind of like, if you want to show me something, that'd be great. Or if we could learn about each other, that'd be cool. I'll be coming here again. Maybe we can share something with each other.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of that simple.
I'd like to think so too. After, hearing this approach, I'm gonna put some of this stuff to practice for sure.
I think you should.
Yeah.
I think you should. Well, it's been a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to come visit you and coming on our show. We
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. And please, you said it was Tiresquatch.com.
Tiresquatch.com if you want to see the big Sasquatch, Bigfoot, or Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, big old bike tire squatch,
The bike tire boojum.
and everything else that's made out of bike tires. I got a lot of bike tire art.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if nothing else, just please, stop in, check this out. If you're on your way to hunt an even more elusive creature, the albino squirrel of Brevard, come on down, stop in to the Tiresquatch shop, and we will catch you on the next episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. Thank you again, Marcia.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night. Stay spooky.
Caleb? Caleb! Where you at, bro? It's me, Bigfoot. You never got back to me about that extended warranty. What, was it something I said? Something I didn't say? I love you. Okay, maybe I'm coming on a little too strong there. Anyway, give me a call. You've got my card.